Hello, it's Sage. Welcome to my video. I thought it would be fun today to give you a tour of my record collection. I'm a music lover, and so I have collected quite an amount of records over the years, and I thought it would be fun to share my thoughts and opinions about all my favorite music. I'm also trying out different forms of creativity and expression, so I thought a YouTube video would be fun to give a try. But with that being said, let's start. My first record I have is Fleetwood Mac, Rumours. This is the first record I've ever owned, and not only is it my oldest record, but it's also the oldest album I have release date wise. Most of my records that I own came out during my lifetime. I do love older music, but it just so happens that the records I have came out when I was alive, except for this one. This one is from the 70s. I love this album very much. Soft rock, witchy vibes, love the fall energy, love Stevie Nicks. This album came into my life at kind of a difficult time, so I do hold this album very dear. My favorite song from this album, it's either Dreams or Gold Dust Woman. Next up, I have 3 Paramore albums, starting with Brand New Eyes by Paramore. If you know me, you know I am obsessed with Paramore. I love Paramore so much, along with Hayley Williams. Hayley Williams is one of the best female vocalists to ever live. But this album reminds me of my childhood. My dad used to play Paramore all the time in the car when I was a kid growing up. And so this album really just reminds me of my childhood. Paramore is my lifelong favorite because of this. But this album in particular really takes me back to being a kid. And yeah, I just love the rock, early 2000s alternative vibes. I love to put on this album and just sing my heart out, bare my soul singing this album. But my favorite song off this album is Brick by Boring Brick. That's the first Paramore song I ever got really obsessed with. Go listen to it. This one's Brand New Eyes by Paramore. And the next Paramore album I have is After Laughter. This album, I made it my entire personality in high school. I was absolutely obsessed with this album. This album is a little bit different than the early Paramore albums. This one's a little more beachy, 80s inspired, dancey. The lyrics are pretty sad, but the music is very dancey, and I love that contrast. The music very much looks like the cover of this album. Very 80s, very bright synths, synth pop, fun. It's a fun album, and like I said, I was obsessed with this in high school, made it my entire personality. And my favorite song from this album is Pool or Told You So. Both of those are really good songs. The last Paramore album that I own is This Is Why. This is Paramore's most recent album they've come out with. This album is a little bit more grunge, a little bit more post-punk, a little more edgy. The lyrics are a little more edgy as well. The lyrics are very much talking about how it is to be a young adult in this crazy world we live in. So very relatable. My favorite song from this album is Figure 8. Next up, I have another album I was obsessed with in high school. This is Little Dark Age by MGMT. I love this album. This album is once again very 80s inspired, synth pop, but this one's very psychedelic. None of the songs are quite the same. Each song very much has its own vibe, but the song Little Dark Age completely changed my music taste, completely changed my brain chemistry, It's one of the first gothic dark wave songs I've ever heard. I love the dark energy of that song. That song did blow up on TikTok a couple years ago, but I knew it before it was cool. But this album, it's very, very trippy. That's how I describe it. Let's take a look inside. Once again, great album, 80s inspired, very unique. And my favorite song from this album is definitely the title track, Little Dark Age. Up next, I have Disappear Here by Bad Sons. This album, once again, I listened to it a lot in high school. It's a soft indie rock alternative album, but this album really reminds me of being young, the good parts about being a teenager. It feels like having no responsibilities. It feels like freedom. The music just feels very free, soft, and airy. Very good vibes album. Very summery. My favorite song from this album is Heartbreaker. Next up, I have Plastic Beach by Gorillaz. I don't really have any other albums like this. This album has lots of hip hop, disco, but also synth pop and indie. There's a lot going on in this album. If you're familiar with Gorillaz, you know that they tell a story through their songs and through their music videos. And this album is no exception. It follows the main characters through the story, the adventure of Plastic Beach. And so listening to the album really just takes you on a journey. Very good, very fun vibes. Plastic Beach by Gorillaz. Next, I have 3 Chvrches albums, starting with The Bones of What You Believe. I love Chvrches so much. Chvrches is the first band that got me really obsessed with synth pop. I love how big Chvrches songs sound. I love how big their synths sound. The music really just hits you in the face in the best way. But this album is their first album, and again, very just classic synth pop. Love it. My favorite song from this album, it's tied between Night Sky and Lungs. I saw Night Sky live and I literally ascended, so you should go listen to it. My next Chvrches album is Love Is Dead. This is the first Chvrches album I ever listened to, and it's also my favorite Chvrches album. The synths and the songs are just so big, so you can just feel it in your body. I remember when we saw Chvrches live, you could just feel the electricity pulsating throughout your body, and that's just what I love about Chvrches songs, is just how energetic they are. And this album also was shown to me by my dad. I love this album so much, very special to me. My favorite song from this album is definitely Graffiti. The last Chvrches album I have is Screen Violence. This is their most recent album that they've released. And again, it's very synthy, but this one's very inspired by an 80s horror film. The music sounds like what you would hear in an 80s horror film. I love the aesthetics. I love all things spooky, all things Halloween. Just look at that cover. Love this album. It very much reminds me of when it first came out. I was in college and I would listen to this in the fall around Halloween, watching the leaves change on campus. But I definitely do love the darker, spooky side of Chvrches. My favorite song from this album, it's tied between Lullabies and How Not to Drown, featuring Robert Smith. The next record I have is Blood Bank by Bon Iver. This is actually an EP. It only has 4 songs, but this record definitely reminds me of the Pacific Northwest. I love the Pacific Northwest. I want to live in Oregon. It's been a dream of mine for the past couple of years. This album feels like a rainy day, feels like driving through the forest when it's raining. And I just love all things rainy, Pacific Northwestern, and this album is very much that. My favorite song from this album is Beach Baby. My next 2 records I'm going to show you, I'm going to take a minute and separate the art from the artist. I know Grimes is very controversial, and I don't agree with a lot of the things she says or stands for or has done in the past couple of years, but I do enjoy her music, so I'm going to pretend that the Grimes that made these next 2 albums is a completely different version than the Elon Musk Grimes that we know today. So first up, I have Visions by Grimes. First of all, I just want to say I love this album cover. The art is so cool. Obsessed with it. But this album is dream pop, art pop. It sounds like a fairy made this album. And one thing I do like about Grimes music is that it sounds very not of this world, and I think that's really cool. I love when music sounds otherworldly. My favorite song from this album is Symphonia IX, or Symphonia 9, My Weight Is You. And the second Grimes album I own is Art Angels. Again, let's take a moment and appreciate the art. It's so weird, and I just love how weird it is. Look at all that. Very similar to the last album. This one is a little more highly produced. I'd say if the last album was fairy music, this one is alien music. And my favorite song from this album is Reality. Up next, I have Locket by Crumb. This is another album I listened to a lot in my young adulthood. I'm still in my young adulthood, but like my fresh adulthood. But this album, it's kind of like psychedelic bedroom pop. It's very beachy, very springy. I feel like I love to put on this album in the spring when all the flowers start blooming and everything is turning green. Kind of psychedelic vibes. The music very much looks like this cover. My favorite song from this album is the title track, Locket. Have so many good memories to that song. I'm always in the mood for that song. It's such a good song. Next I have Currents by Tame Impala. Let's take another moment and appreciate the album cover. Look how beautiful that is. I love the colors. I could just stare at that for so long. But this album, I loved this album in high school, but I rediscovered it during college at the peak of my stoner phase. Very psychedelic, very dreamy, synth pop. Love me some synth pop. I have lots and lots of good memories to this album. This album just feels like a dream. Sometimes I like to just put on this record, lay on the couch and just drift away into space or be pulled away by a current. My favorite song from this album is Let It Happen. My next 2 albums are Daft Punk. This is Discovery by Daft Punk. Daft Punk means so much to me. Daft Punk reminds me a lot of when me and my husband first started dating. But Daft Punk is very robot music, if you are unfamiliar. It's synthy, electronic, dance music. And I just love all of Daft Punk's music. Daft Punk is such good vibes. Unfortunately, when I was leaving the record shop, I tripped and I dropped my new record, and so she has a little bit of a wound here. But there's the inside. My favorite song from Discovery is Virtus Quo. Up next is Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. This is the first album that really got me into Daft Punk. This album has all sorts of stuff going on. It's very 70s and 80s inspired. It has funk, disco, synth, electronic, lots and lots of fun things happening in this album. I put this album on when I want to feel good. I put this album on when I want to cook. And just the other day I put this album on and I had a dance party with my siblings, and it was a blast, and that's what this album is good for. My favorite song from this album, it's tied between The Game of Love and Instant Crush. Also, we need to take a moment. Look how cool that is. I'm obsessed. Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. Up next is Kid A by Radiohead. This album was actually given to my husband as a gift, but I'm still including it as part of my record collection because this record collection is our record collection. And I do love this album very much. I don't really know how to describe this album. There's a lot of electronic elements, a lot of experimental music I've never really heard before. It's kind of a genre of its own. But one time I was procrastinating a final essay and I put this album on in my noise canceling headphones, and this album made me lock in. I was completely in the zone. I felt like my brain was getting a massage. It felt like I was being so insightful. That's what this music feels like. Very cool album cover. My favorite song from this album is How to Disappear Completely. Very gut-wrenching song, but I love it. Up next, I have Molchat Doma. The album is in Russian, but I looked it up, it translates to floors. I do love the brutalist architecture on the front cover, but this album is one of the first post-punk, gothic, dark wave albums that I really got into. This album feels like cold weather, it feels like fall, it feels like winter. It feels spooky, it feels dark, but I love that. I love spooky and dark things. And yeah, this album is in Russian, but I really think it's cool that I can appreciate music that's not in my language and still get so much out of it. I don't know how to say the names of the songs, but my favorite songs from this album are track 1 and track 3. Up next, I have Modus Vivendi by 070 Shake. This is a very ethereal dream pop album. It's one of the dreamiest albums I have. I remember one time I put in my headphones and I went on a bike ride on a fall evening, and I felt like my bike was about to grow wings and take off flying into the clouds when I was listening to this album. That's what this album feels like. Very dreamy, very peaceful, kind of ethereal R&B. My favorite songs from this album are Guilty Conscience and Under the Moon. Up next, I have Gathering Swans by Choirboy. Now I know this cover looks a little bit scary. It does have some spooky elements, but the music is very peaceful. One of my dark wave albums, synth pop, ethereal. I love me some dreamy music. I listened to this a lot the year before me and my husband got married, and it just brings me a lot of good memories. Very dreamy, very peaceful album. My favorite song from this album is It's Over. My next record is Untourable Album by Men I Trust. This album is a lo-fi, indie, moody, atmospheric album. I am always in the mood for this album. This album just completely elevates whatever vibe I'm feeling. I love putting it on a rainy day. I love putting it on at a late night. I love listening to it on a drive. I'm always in the mood for Men I Trust. And their bass lines are chef's kiss. I saw them live and everything was so crisp, so warm. This album feels like a warm cup of tea or a warm blanket. My favorite song from this album, it changes every day, but lately my favorite has been Ante Meridian. The next two records I'm gonna show you were created by the artist that I have been absolutely obsessed with for the past 3 years, Ethel Cain. This is Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. This album is very dark, folk, moody, atmospheric. There's ambient elements, there's gothic elements, there's horror. I love this album so much. This album changed my life. I remember one time the song from this album, A House in Nebraska, came on my Discover Weekly. And I was like, holy shit, that changed my life. And so I went and listened to this album in order, and holy shit. This album, it tells a story. Hayden on Hedonia is the artist. Her stage name, her character name is Ethel Cain, but the album follows Ethel Cain's story. And it's kind of a sad and scary story, but it's very beautiful and it means so much to me. Look how beautiful that album art is. I'm obsessed with everything Ethel Cain, Hayden does. She inspires me so much. I love the atmospheric elements. I love how much feeling is in each one of her songs. My favorite song from this album is definitely A House in Nebraska. One of the most gut-wrenching songs I've ever heard in my life, in the best way. I love it. It completely changed my life. Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. Up next by Ethel Cain, I have Willoughby Tucker, I Will Always Love You. I love this album so much. Oh, there's a poster that's falling out. This is the prequel to Preacher's Daughter. So this tells the story of what happened before the events of Preacher's Daughter. She's such a good storyteller. Again, this is very moody. This one's a little more sad than scary, but very moody, dark, but beautiful album. My favorite song from this album, I seriously don't think I'm gonna be able to narrow it down to less than 3. So my top 3 favorite songs from this album are Dust Bowl, Tempest, and Waco, Texas. Masterpieces of songs. Please go listen to Ethel Cain. Last but not least, my newest album in my collection is Death in the Business of Wailing by Ciro's. Ethel Cain very much influenced my taste in music, and lately I've been really into slow, folk, ambient, moody music. And this album is just that. This album, again, reminds me of the Pacific Northwest. I feel like if I were on the beach staring into the ocean, I would want to listen to this album. A cold ocean, a cold beach. I recently just saw Ciro's live, and that's where I got this record, and it was amazing. His voice sounds just like the record. My heartstrings were pulled the entire concert. It was beautiful. My phone just ran out of storage and I had to quickly delete a couple things, so if the angle looks a little bit different, that's why. But as I was saying, beautiful, wonderful, gut-wrenching album. Was amazing to witness live. My favorite song from this album is Belly of the Whale. And that concludes my record collection. That's only a handful of the albums that have shaped me, but they all mean so much to me. That I have so many amazing memories with each of these albums. If you would like to listen to any of these albums, which I highly recommend, I will be linking a playlist to my record collection in the description. But thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening to me share my thoughts and opinions about all my favorite music. It was very fun to make this video. I hope to make more soon. But thanks for watching.